The House will come to order. The chair recognizes the member from Bartlett, Representative Chandler, who moves that the House adjourn from the session of April 1st, 2015. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it and the House is adjourned. The House will attend to a prayer by House Chaplain Reverend Kate Atkinson, Rector of St. Paul's Church in Concord.
Before I pray, I'd like to invite you to join me in a moment of silence as we remember the victims of the Boston Marathon bombing. O God of healing, we remember before you today the tragic events of the Boston Marathon 2 years ago. We grieve for the lives cut short, the lives permanently altered by disability, and the lives poisoned by fear. We give you thanks for the courage and compassion shown by so many people on that day, the first responders, medics, police, race officials, and many ordinary citizens who ignored the danger and did all they could to help. We give you thanks for the care and support that has continued through the weeks, months, and years of healing, for the doctors, surgeons, nurses, and therapists, for the families, friends, neighbors, and strangers, for the victims themselves who refused to give in, for all who have helped bring wholeness to injured bodies, minds, and spirits. Eternal God, give us strength to deal with the assaults and horrors of an imperfect world. Empower us to remain brave in the face of terrorists' acts, to focus on the wonder of a humanity that will not be vanquished, a humanity that cares for those in need and lifts up those who are downhearted. Teach us and use us, O God of hope, to heal ourselves and to restore your world, for you created it and called it good. Amen.
The chair recognizes the member from Dover, Representative Catherine Cheney, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair recognizes Karen Leo Hill of Lebanon, who will now sing our national anthem.
Won't you please join me in singing? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
The House will attend to requests for leaves of absence. Oh, yeah, geez. 2 weeks off and I'm a little rusty already.
Mr. Speaker, the day, illness, Representatives Baruti, Comtos, Cody, DeSimone, Francis, Froberg, Gallagher, Phyllis Katsoukaris, Russell Ober, Pantelakos, Phillips, Priestley, Russell, Sanders, Thole, Wheeler. The day, important business, Representatives Azarian, Bodwin, Borden, Bradley, Andrew Christie, Flanders, Goulet, Halstead, Introne, Katsiantonis, Douglas Long, McLaren, Myler, Nelson, William O'Brien. Ohm, Marjorie Smith, Stevens, Trelevin, White. The day, illness in the family, Representatives Rebecca Brown, DeLemus, Lebrecq, Sanborn, Wright.
These leaves of absence will be granted unless otherwise ordered by the House. The House will attend to the introduction of guests.
Mr. Speaker, please welcome Dennis Ruprecht Jr. and Joe D'Angelo, students at Woodsville High School, pages for the day. Mr. Speaker, please welcome Reverend Lynn Lucas and Dennis Mayer, guests of Representatives Alan Cook. Richard Danforth, guest of Representative Shaw. Zoe Hill, daughter of the singer, guest of Representative Almy. Stephen DeFranco, Fred and Louise Brayman, Tony and Kathy Isgar, husband and guests of Representative DeFranco. Fourth graders from the Jaffrey School, guests of Representatives Ames, Lay, and Sterling. They are with us in the gallery today.
Welcome to the New Hampshire House. The House will attend to a communication.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in a letter received last week, to whom it may concern, I am sorry to say that due to the new work schedule, I would only be able to be in Concord every other month. Therefore, I would not be able to dedicate the amount of time that is needed to properly represent my constituents of District 20, Seabrook and Hampton Falls. Therefore, I resign my position as New Hampshire State Representative. Sincerely, Dennis Sweeney.
This resignation is accepted with regret. The House will attend to a motion to vacate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative James Belanger moves that the House vacate the reference of Senate Bill 30, FNL, permitting counties with unincorporated areas to establish tax increment financing districts, to the Committee on Municipal and County Government.
The question is on the motion to vacate. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Senate Bill 30 is referred to the Committee on Finance. The House will now attend to the consent calendar.
Mr. Speaker, from the Committee on Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs, Senate Bill 22, removed by Representative Katowski.
Are there any other bills to be removed from the consent calendar? Representative Flanagan moves that the consent calendar with the relevant amendments as printed in the day's House record be adopted. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent calendar is adopted. Under the rules of the House, Senate Bills 151 and 265 are referred to the Committee on Finance. Senate Bill 104 is referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, and Senate Bill 133 is referred to the Committee on Labor, Industrial, and Rehabilitative Services. The House will now attend to the regular calendar. The Committee on Education, to which was referred Senate Bill 69, an act establishing a commission to study social impact bond funding for early childhood education for at-risk students. Having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Mary Heath for the committee. The chair recognizes the member from Litchfield, Representative Bohm, to speak against the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, fellow representatives. I rise in opposition to the committee recommendation of ought to pass. This is a commission to study social impact fund bonding for early childhood education for at-risk students. So what is the problem? It's only a commission. Problem is that commissions recommend things, and depending on who is on the commission and who is the ruling party, the recommendation could cost us a lot of money in the future. There were some that voted with the minority stating that the results are already there. We don't need a commission. So the commission is there for only one purpose, to prove that we need preschool education. What is a social impact bond? It's also known as pay for success bond or a social benefit bond. It is a contract with the social sector in which a commitment is made to pay for improved social outcomes that will result in public sector savings. Improved social outcomes. What does this mean? And who determines that we have a savings? In most cases, these are not measurable, but purely hypothetical. But we may hear that statistics show this or that. But I am reminded of a quote attributed to Benjamin Disraeli and Mark Twain. There are lies, damn lies, then there are statistics. Social impact bonds do not actually raise additional capital for social programs, but instead displace funding from other programs. So what shall we displace? Or will this be another demand for more taxes? But wait a minute, just like kindergarten, you will pay for this with your property taxes. And remember, and where will you put your students? There isn't any building aid. Are your schools big enough for more classrooms? And don't think this will be a 28A issue. The court ruled against us in the kindergarten mandate. It's education, and we already do education. At-risk students. Who are at-risk students? It describes a student who requires temporary, ongoing intervention in order to succeed academically. Now, who determines this? But then we can easily guess who will get the at-risk label. But it can be argued that at one time or another, any student may require intervention. And can we legally just say only certain students can get preschool education? RSA 186.11-33 already prohibits any discrimination for any educational purpose. And this was amended last year to make it clearer. So a real push here is who will pay for preschool education. And at what age do we say that the state will be responsible for raising your child? At what age do we say to the parents, we the state will now take over your job because we know what was best? And for those that studied history, doesn't this sound familiar? Studies from the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development show that children that spend time in non-maternal care before the age of 5 have more behavioral problems later. Also, the federal government already mandates a program for children with disabilities, another definition at risk, from age 3 years till 21. These children are in our public schools for at least half a day. So let's stop labeling children. Let's stop giving excuses for not doing well. We all have heard of so-called at-risk students doing very well. I guess in today's society, I would have been an at-risk student, but we didn't label then. And I think I did okay. Some may argue that. Here's another example. An Hispanic student from a broken home, mother was disabled, free and reduced lunch. This student ended up being valedictorian and magna cum laude from college. This student refused to be labeled. So let's stop the social engineering and vote red, and I request a roll call vote so we will know who wants to raise your property taxes. Thank you.
Does the member yield to a question?
Yes.
Representative Kirk, you may inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member from Litchfield for accepting the question. It's my understanding that if a social impact bond is used to finance some sort of early education program, and the program is successful, then it's the state that has to pick up the cost of these bonds, which would mean we would have to find money somewhere in the budget in order to do that. Am I correct?
Yes.
Further question, Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Member yields, you may inquire.
Thank you. Second question. Under page 2, line 3 through 5, it talks about studying the establishment of an early childhood education board to negotiate contracts with private entities to fund certain early childhood education programs and award grants to certain early childhood education programs. The effect of this, if such a commission were established, or a board were established, would be to give that board the power of budgeting state of New Hampshire funds, because the contracts that they enter into, should they be successful, would have the bonds repaid by the state. So aren't we giving away budgeting authority to a board should this be the way we go?
Yes, and like I said, it will displace money from someplace else that we will end up having to pay for.
Thank you.
Before I recognize the next speaker, remind members to please turn on your voting stations. Chair recognizes the member from Manchester, Representative Heath, to speak in favor of the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't even know how to respond to that last comment, but I will say I've spent my life in education. The investment that we make in children is an investment in the future. Now, my purpose in rising today is obviously in support of SB 69. It's a bipartisan bill. It's widely supported, and it simply establishes a commission to study social impact bond funding for early childhood education for at-risk students. There is a growing level of poverty in our young New Hampshire families. I live in the city of Manchester. Our schools, Beach Street School, has over 90% of poverty. Our young families are deeply troubled. Day after day, they struggle to feed their children. I ask for your support and the efforts to proactively explore social impact bonding for our youngest at-risk children. We owe our youngest children that we support them. Our children are our future. It's an investment. I work with numbers of local businesses in the city of Manchester who every single day are investing in our schools. And they're investing in our schools not because they know that it's going to be lots of money that's going to come from it. They invest because they will have employees in the future who will be viable, who will work for them. But I thank you, and I please ask you to support New Hampshire's most at-risk children. I thank you.
Will the member yield to a question? Representative Guile, you may inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the representative from Manchester for taking my question. Is it not true that the concept of social impact bonds have been used successfully in states such as Utah and Arizona and a number of other states across the country, not only to fund early childhood programs, but other programs as well, and that it is a very interesting and innovative idea for a commission to study? Is that not true, Representative?
Thank you, Representative Guile. It is absolutely true, and it is a way where business looks at community issues, and it's a way to deliver back to their communities. I thank you for your information.
Does the member yield to a further question? Member does not yield. Representative Bohm has requested a roll call vote. Is that sufficiently seconded? That is sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Members will take their seats. House will come to order. Chair recognizes Representative Sullivan for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development has shown that children who were able to spend the first 5 years in the home under maternal care, opposed to the home care or education outside of the home, were shown to have fewer behavioral issues. And Mr. Speaker, if I know that constitutionally and legally we cannot single out certain students for educational purposes. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, if I know that this commission is unnecessary, as this has been studied repeatedly by several organizations whose findings are readily available, would I now press the red button? Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 69. If you are in favor, you will press the green button. If you are opposed, you'll press the red button. The chair recognizes Representative Ladd for parliamentary inquiry.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. If I know that investments of children ages 5 and younger improve school readiness and decrease crime, delinquency, and substance abuse, and if I know that evidence demonstrates that $1 invested in early childhood learning and development produces a return of $4 to $17 in avoided costs and economic productivity, and if I further believe at a time when budgets are tight and resources slim that we have to consider new and innovative models that work to finance early childhood education as currently done in states such as Utah, South Carolina, and others. I then would support the bipartisan majority and recommendation of ought to pass by pressing the green button. Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 69. This is a roll call vote. If you are in favor, you will press the green button. If you are opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. If all members voted who were present when the question was put, the House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 164 members in favor, 168 in opposition, the motion fails. The chair recognizes Representative Bohm for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I recommend ITL.
You're moving inexpedient to legislate.
Inexpedient to legislate. Thank you.
Division vote has been requested. This will be a division vote. Are you ready for the question? Question is on the adoption of the motion of inexpedient to legislate. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. Have all members voted who were present when the question was put? House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 186 votes in the affirmative, 146 in the negative, the motion is adopted. The majority of the Committee on Education, to which was referred Senate Bill 101, an act prohibiting the state from requiring implementation of Common Core standards, having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Glenn Cordelli for the majority of the committee. The minority of the committee, having considered the same and being unable to agree with the majority, report with the following resolution. Resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative Barbara E. Shaw for the minority of the committee. The chair recognizes the member from Manchester, Representative Shaw, to speak against the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the issue in this bill is simple. No one is mandating Common Core standards to any district in New Hampshire, so the amendment in this bill is unnecessary. But in lieu of much negativity surrounding Common Core standards, I'd like to make a few clarifications. Today's and future students need to be prepared to enter a world in which colleges, trades, and businesses are far more demanding of skills than they have ever been before. A truly competitive world. But it was realized a few years ago that educational opportunities were not equal across our country. Also, as a transient society, this was a serious problem. To ensure equal educational opportunity for all students, Common Core standards were drafted by experts, education and business leaders, and teachers from across the country to establish clear, consistent, hence common, nationwide guidelines for what every student should know and be able to do in math and English language arts in K through 12. The focus of Common Core standards is on developing critical thinking, problem solving, and analytical skills critical to a global society. 43 states, the District of Columbia, 4 territories, and the military, the Department of Defense Educational Program, voluntarily have adopted and are moving forward with Common Core standards. New Hampshire adopted Common Core standards in 2010 as the math and English language arts component of the New Hampshire College and Career Ready standards. After much input and deliberation, districts around the state began to endorse the initiative and incorporate the Common Core standards at the local level. The actual implementation of Common Core standards, including how they are taught, development of curriculum to teach the standards, and materials used to support teachers as they help students master the standards, is entirely decided by the local districts. No law says adopt Common Core standards. This is locally controlled and developed. As I stated in my blurb, Common Core meaningfully addresses the problem of low expectations and equalizes learning opportunity for all. I'm a veteran educator, 45 years of teaching, curriculum development, and implementing changing standards. Common Core standards are not to be feared. We should actually be helping our districts and our teachers and our students with this transition, because together is the key. I ask that you support districts successfully moving forward with this initiative and support the future of education in our country and New Hampshire by defeating this unnecessary bill. Thank you.
Does a member yield to a question?
Yes.
Member yields. Representative Baldessaro, you may inquire.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative, for taking my question. You say this is not mandatory, that local control deals with this. My district in Londonderry submitted a waiver for the Smarter Balance Assessment test, and they were denied. They were told they had to take that test. So where is the local control?
I am talking about the Common Core standards. The Smarter Balance Assessment is a different issue. It's not. The Smarter Balance is based on the Common Core standards, but the Common Core standards are not mandatory.
Chair recognizes the member from Tuftonboro, Representative Cordelli, to speak in favor of the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues. Has there been a more controversial education issue during our lifetimes than Common Core? This bill clearly states that Common Core will not be required by the Department of Education or the State Board of Education to be implemented in any school district. My friend from Manchester has argued that the department has said that it will not mandate Common Core standards. That's nice, but have you seen any of the presentations made by the department to the superintendents? They are pushing Common Core. They have established regional staff to assist districts in implementation of Common Core. We have just heard about the assessments, Smarter Balanced Assessments, and that's a different issue we've heard. Well, Smarter Balanced Assessments are Common Core aligned assessments that are mandated by the department. A few weeks ago, we passed HB 323 that established a pilot program for districts called the PACE program. Common Core competencies are required in the PACE program. Several weeks ago, we passed a different version of this bill, HB 276. We do not know what will happen to that bill elsewhere. So we need today to pass this bill. Please vote green. And Mr. Speaker, I request a roll call vote.
Representative Hall had previously requested a roll call vote. Is that sufficiently seconded? That is sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Members will take their seats.
While the members are taking their seats, I would just like to introduce the gentleman standing to my right here. This is Bill Schaefer, who is the former clerk of the Ohio House of Representatives and is the president of International Roll Call Corporation that is here working on our software development system over the week. So he's down here today. He's checking out our voting system, which IRC installed last year. So if you would all please welcome Mr. Schaefer.
House will come to order. The chair recognizes Representative Shurtleff for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know that the Business and Industry Association supports the Common Core standards because it has a positive impact on the ability to hire and retain qualified workers, and Mr. Speaker, if I know the Common Core standards do not have a negative impact on local school districts and have not been mandated by the New Hampshire Department of Education, would I now push the red button and vote no? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 101. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Chair recognizes Representative Ladd for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I believe that a school board should not be required to implement or participate in the Common Core state standards, and if I know that this body has previously stated in this session that it is a school board decision to adopt any educational standards that meet or exceed minimum state standards, would I then support the committee recommendation of ought to pass by pressing the green button? Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 101. This is a roll call vote. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. Have all members voted who were present when the question was put? The House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 202 votes in the affirmative, 138 in the negative, the committee report is adopted. The majority of the Committee on Education, to which was referred Senate Bill 195, an act encouraging instruction in cursive handwriting and memorization of multiplication tables, having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Josh Moore for the majority of the committee. The minority of the committee, having considered the same and being unable to agree with the majority, report with the following resolution. Resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative James Versharin for the minority of the committee. The chair recognizes the member from Dover, Representative Versharin, to speak against the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, honorable colleagues. So far I've been in the majority today and defeated, and I've been in the minority today and defeated. So I'm feeling like a little bit like Don Quixote up here, but I'm going to try one more time. I rise in opposition to SB 195 for these reasons in addition to what I wrote in the blurb. The assertion was made in a presentation to us that cursive is a tool for brain development, particularly for dyslexic people. No one disputes the great value of handwriting for learning and brain development. That cursive is any better than printing for brain development is at best unclear. Most articles promoting cursive do so to promote handwriting without consideration of the similar benefits of block printing. The best statement I found came from Steve Graham, who studies children's writing and teaches education at Arizona State University. He believes that the current cursive debate misses the problem completely. It really doesn't matter if it's cursive or manuscript, he says, and in a reference to us perhaps, it's kind of silly in a way that you have state legislatures getting all tied up in this. In preparation for a story on this topic by National Public Radio, all of the researchers that NPR spoke with agreed that cursive is good, but none would argue that it was better than block printing. For those of you who are lefties, you may agree with some of our committee members that cursive writing is not the best thing. Finally, my own anecdotal evidence. I have two sons, neither of whom has used cursive since elementary school. Ben, my 39-year-old, works for General Electric, training engineers worldwide. Paul, my younger son, is a mathematics teacher at the college level. Cursive is irrelevant in their lives. Perhaps the biggest problem with this bill from my perspective is that laws that are not really laws and are likely to be ignored undermine respect for the law. Laws that encourage are so blatantly ignorable that they will be ignored, and that idea will continue with other laws. This bill to encourage cursive is feel-good legislation for those of us nostalgic for the days of our youth. Handwriting is essential. Perhaps there is a time for cursive, or perhaps it is time for cursive like hours spent learning keyboard at a typewriter, to be offered as an elective and an option for those of interest. There are better ways for children to spend their precious learning time. Let's not legislate to feel good. Let's not legislate to encourage. I ask you to oppose the OTP on SB 195 so that another motion may be offered. Thank you.
Does a member yield to a question? Representative Flanagan, you may inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank the representative. Aren't most, if not all, contracts signed in cursive?
Actually, both my sons have signatures that are completely illegible and completely irrelevant to cursive. In fact, you couldn't read them no matter how well you wrote cursive. So signatures are really irrelevant in this discussion.
Chair recognizes the member from Tuftonboro, Representative Cordelli, to speak in favor of the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues. SB 195 is a very simple bill. It encourages school districts to have students memorize the multiplication tables and to teach cursive writing. Multiplication tables first. Are they important today with smartphones and calculators? Is it old-fashioned? Many educators and researchers will tell you that the rapid mental retrieval of basic facts is a prerequisite for doing more complex kinds of math. And the only way to achieve this rapid retrieval is practice. One study found that the most errors made by students working on complex math problems were due to a lack of rapid recall of basic facts. And how many of you have tried to get the correct change in a store and the cash register doesn't automatically calculate your change? Cursive handwriting. Cursive has been shown to improve brain development in the areas of thinking, language, and working memory. Brain scans done while doing handwriting have shown the activation of large regions of the brain involved in thinking, language, and memory. We recently passed a bill to establish a committee to look at department policies with respect to students with dyslexia. Cursive handwriting has been shown to aid students with dyslexia. And one of the most important reasons to teach cursive handwriting. Without it, how will future generations be able to read our founding documents? And why is this needed? These optional Common Core standards do not include cursive. And I am sure you have all seen examples of Common Core math. Enough said. And Mr. Speaker, I would request a division vote.
Does the member yield to a question? Member yields. Representative Itza, you may inquire. Representative Itza, you may inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the member for taking my question. You already touched on it, but is it not true that a student not taught cursive would not, in fact, be able to verify that the Constitution, for example, they were reading was, in fact, the Constitution that was written?
I think that is entirely correct. And what a shame if students are not able to read, or young people in the future are not able to read our founding documents. My wife mailed a birthday card to her niece a few months ago. She writes in cursive. This niece, who's a graduate of University of New Hampshire, was not able to read the card, handed to her mother to have her read her birthday card to her.
A division vote has been requested. Division vote has been requested. This will be a division vote. Members will take their seats. The House will come to order. Chair recognizes Representative Heath for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that local school districts already have the authority, and if I know that SB 195 really carries little influence, would I please press the red button so another motion can be made? Thank you very much.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 195. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. The chair recognizes Representative Moore for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that this is an encouragement and not a mandate, and if I also know that memorizing the multiplication tables is better than Common Core math, and if I also know that learning cursive is extremely important if we're going to require our future generations to read the founding documents as well as mark their signature, would you now join me in pressing the green button? Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 195. This is a division vote. If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. Have all members voted who were present when the question was put? The House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 186 votes in the affirmative, 155 in the negative, the committee report is adopted. I'd like to remind members, I probably should have ruled a couple people out of order on their PIs. You are not asking people to vote with you. You are asking a question of the chair, would I then? Not please or not anything like that. So please keep that in mind, or I will be ruling people out of order while they're doing their PIs, and I really prefer not to do that. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred Senate Bill 48, an act relative to the New Hampshire Commission on Native American Affairs, having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Mark L. Prue for the committee. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred Senate Bill 125, an act relative to certification and licensure for mold assessment or remediation services. Having considered the same, report the same with the following amendment and the recommendation that the bill ought to pass with amendment. Representative Jacqueline C. Silly for the committee. The chair recognizes Representative Sitek for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we recommit this bill to committee, and I'd like to speak to that motion, please.
You're recognized to speak.
Mr. Speaker, before we get to the merits of the issue and whether we want to debate whether this should be philosophically a licensing issue, it's been pointed out to us that there is an ambiguity or a failure to define well one of the terms in the bill. We'd like to look at the bill again. We ask that you agree with me, please, to recommit this bill. It will come back this session. There will be no danger of it getting moldy.
The question is on the motion to recommit. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred Senate Bill 142, an act proclaiming September 25th as Ataxia Awareness Day. Having considered the same, report the same with the following resolution. Resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative Peter J. Hansen for the committee. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred Senate Bill 191, an act relative to the use of the state's procurement card services. Having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Mark L. Prue for the committee. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. Under the rules of the House, the bill is referred to the Committee on Finance. Yep. Okay. The majority of the Committee on Fish and Game and Marine Resources, to which was referred Senate Bill 181, an act relative to registration fees for hunter education programs for the Fish and Game Department. Having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Ivy C. Van for the majority of the committee. The minority of the committee, having considered the same and being unable to agree with the majority, report with the following resolution. Resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative James A. Splain for the minority of the committee. The bill is on second reading, open for further amendment. And Representative Carolyn McGuire moves floor amendment 131-8H. And Representative Splain is recognized to speak in favor of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The amendment, the amendment's in your seat pockets.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When this bill came before the committee, there was a great deal of discussion in the committee, and we almost retained it because it's a complex issue. Fish and Game has never charged for hunter safety classes. They've always been free, with the fact that the person teaching the class could charge up to $5 to recoup their own expenses when they taught the class. The reason they're free is because the federal government pays 100% for these. And if we were to put this bill forward as originally written and charge a $10 fee for the class, we would lose that federal money for those $10 that we collect from each person. And that money, as charged for the class, would have to go into a special hunter education fund that we could not touch for anything but hunter education. This adds an extra fee onto the hunter and also robs us of federal money that we were already supposed to get. So we tossed around several ideas to try to reimburse the hunter, and the whole intent of this bill is to make sure that if you sign up for your hunter education class and you take a slot, you don't rob someone of a slot and then not show up. We're very much aware of that, and we're in favor of making sure that if you sign up for it, you show up. So we want to give the hunter some incentive to show up and not just sign up, take a slot, and then not show up. So this amendment that we put forward gives us the best of both worlds. It gives Fish and Game what they're looking for because it gives them the ability to make somebody charge a registration fee, and that's not a fee for the class, it's a fee for the registration for the class, the way that it's written. So this would not go into the Fish and Game hunter safety budget. It wouldn't have to be in the special account that couldn't be touched. This is a registration fee, and that registration fee would be paid by the hunter to make sure he has his slot, and then upon completion of his hunter safety class would allow him to take $10 off of his license when he goes to get his license. Now, since this money has not been put into the special fund by Fish and Game because it was not a fee for the class but a fee for the registration for the class, that money can be reimbursed back to the hunter. There's no complexity here. It's very simple. It allows the hunter to ensure that he has a spot in a class. It prevents people from signing up for spots and then not showing up, because if they do sign up and pay their $10 and then don't show up, they're not going to get a license, so they can't get their $10 off. The Fish and Game Department keeps $10. I urge you to support the amendment as it's written. It's a good amendment. It gives us everything that we were looking for in committee, but we didn't have time to do while we were there. Thank you.
Does the member yield to a question?
I do.
Representative Webb, you may inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the member for taking my question. Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker. My question is, do you believe that if this amendment was to pass, that it might actually encourage more people to get fishing license, thus increasing the amount of money or hunting license that Fish and Game takes in?
Yes, I believe that the fact that we would have more people dedicated and making a commitment by paying that $10 registration fee, they would show up at those hunter safety classes, they would get their $10 off their license, which is incentive for them to pursue the buying of the license after they complete the course, not to just complete the course itself. So you would have more people purchasing that first license after they've completed the course.
Chair recognizes the member from Peterborough, Representative Van, to speak against the floor amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. I'm speaking against this amendment because Fish and Game has asked us to pass the original bill as written. If we take in money, then that money, I believe, will in fact not be able to be dispersed by the Fish and Game Department. And what will happen is the Fish and Game Department will have to come up with $50,000 to reimburse the people who sign up for the hunter safety courses. So I urge you not to vote for the amendment, but to vote for the original bill as passed forward by the committee. Thank you.
Representative Hinch has requested that this be a division vote. This will be a division vote. Members will take their seats. The House will come to order. The Chair recognizes Representative Carol Maguire for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that the problem of no-shows on hunter education courses is a real issue with Fish and Game, and if I know that they have trouble managing what money they have, but I also know that this course is paid for by the federal government, and we would be charging a fee in order to replace federal funds if we passed this bill. Therefore, would I not press the green button and adopt this amendment?
The question is on the Maguire floor amendment on Senate Bill 181. If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. The Chair recognizes Representative Kidder for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, as I know, that we cannot afford to take any more money out of the bottom line Fish and Game. And this money, there's 5,000 people a year that take the course, and if I understand, $10 a piece, that's $50,000 a year out of Fish and Game's revenues. Please.
Member will suspend. That's would I now?
Excuse me. So would you please vote with me?
No. Would I now?
If you agree with me.
No. Would I now?
Would I now?
press
Would I
the-
now push the red button and so we can kill this amendment? Thank you.
The question is on the McGuire-Floor amendment on Senate Bill 181. This is a division vote. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. If all members voted or were present when the question was put, House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 183 votes in the affirmative, 162 in the negative, the floor amendment is adopted. Chair recognizes Representative Kidder for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to make a motion to table the bill.
Your motion is recognized. The question, non-debatable, the question is on the motion to lay Senate Bill 181 on the table. Division has been requested. This will be a division vote. All right. Representative Flanagan requests a roll call. Is that sufficiently seconded? It is sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. I assume you're opposed. House will come to order. Chair recognizes Representative Hall for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that Fish and Game has seen issues with people registering but not showing up, if I further know that some of us have made a commitment not to raise fees and taxes, but this is a way to make sure the department gets money if someone is a no-show, in the sense that they've made a commitment and taken a slot from another individual potentially. And if I further know that this meets most of what Fish and Game has asked for without adding that tax and fee, would I now vote red on the table motion?
Question is on the tabling motion on Senate Bill 181. If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Chair recognizes Representative Kidder for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that Fish and Game does not need to have $50,000 to $75,000 taken out of its operating funds, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but for Fish and Game, every nickel counts. Would you now vote with me to vote green to table the bill? Thank you.
Question is on the tabling motion on Senate Bill 181. This is a roll call vote. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds. If all members voted who were present when the question was put, the House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 188 votes in the affirmative, 158 in the negative, bill is laid upon the table. The majority of the Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred Senate Bill 149, an act relative to non-public sessions under the Right to Know law, having considered the same, report the same with the following resolution. Resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative Michael J. Sylvia for the majority of the committee. The minority of the committee, having considered the same and being unable to agree with the majority, report with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Timothy O. Horrigan for the minority of the committee. Representative Horrigan is recognized for a motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to move that SB 149 be tabled, and I'd also like to request division, and I do have a PI in proper PI format ready to go. So I would like to move the SB 149 be tabled, please.
All right. We're speaking a little quickly there. I got the let me just ask you. No. Let me just clarify. You've requested that it's tabled. That motion is accepted. You then moved or requested a division vote. That is recognized. And I was not sure if you were also requesting to do a parliamentary inquiry on that.
Yes, I would like to do a parliamentary inquiry.
You are? Yeah. This will be a division vote. Members will take their seats.
Okay.
Representative Horrigan, step back until you're recognized for the parliamentary inquiry. The House will come to order. Chair recognizes Representative Horrigan for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that when negotiating student tuition contracts, school boards have a fiduciary duty to make the best possible deal to best serve the interests of students and taxpayers, and if I also know that it's often useful for the school board to go into non-public session when negotiating these contracts, which can be complex and sensitive, and if I also know the stakeholders are still concerned that RSA 191A in its current form may not adequately protect our community's elected school boards when they're negotiating these contracts, would I now press the green button to lay this bill on this table to enable this House to work on this issue later in the biennium?
The question is on the motion to table Senate Bill 149. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. The chair recognizes Representative Rowe for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I know that this subject is totally and clearly covered in the current Right to Know law, and further, if I know that the House Judiciary Committee voted 13-4 to ITL this bill because it was not necessary, would I not press the red button, oppose the retain, and allow this bill to move forward with an ITL recommendation from the committee? Thank you.
The question is on the motion to table Senate Bill 149. This is a division vote. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. Have all members voted who were present when the question was put? The House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 125 votes in the affirmative, 217 in the negative, the motion fails. The question is on the adoption of the committee report. The chair recognizes... No? Oh. Okay. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. Well. The Committee on Labor, Industrial, and Rehabilitative Services, to which was referred Senate Bill 47, an act repealing the payment of subminimum wages to persons with disabilities. Having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Tammy A. Simmons for the committee. Representative Lay is recognized to speak in favor of the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I shall be brief. Over 70 years ago, the federal government and then New Hampshire authorized payment of below minimum wages to disabled individuals, whether working in sheltered workshops or working in the private sector. Much has changed since the 1930s and 1940s. We no longer isolate or hide those with disabilities. Instead, we now promote their full integration into our workplaces and the larger society. Like HB 411, which this House passed on consent, SB 47 abolishes the subminimum wage for those with disabilities in New Hampshire. Let us join together and thereby, I believe, make New Hampshire the first state in the nation to abolish this relic of the past. Let us provide guidance and leadership to our sister states and to the federal government. Let us join together and make history. Please support the ought to pass motion. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the member from Manchester, Representative Infantine, to speak in favor of the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for letting us the courtesy of allowing two members of the committee to speak on this bill when normally you would see this on the consent agenda. At times we dwell on what divides us instead of what unites us, and this is a great example of the latter. This bill was probably well-intentioned 70 years ago, and it's now a relic that needs to go. So thank you to those individuals who support the disabled. Thank you for the representatives and senators that brought this to light. And thank you to those businesses that refuse to even acknowledge this and want to pay anyone a subminimum wage. And lastly, let us repeal this and recognize that disabled people deserve the same dignity and employment opportunities within the same guidelines as everyone else in the state. And I would respectfully request a resounding voice vote from this body. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the ayes have it unanimously. Committee report is adopted. The Committee on Science, Technology, and Energy, to which was referred Senate Bill 60, an act establishing a commission to investigate implementation of decoupling for New Hampshire utilities, having considered the same, report the same with the following amendment and the recommendation that the bill ought to pass with amendment. Representative William S. Baber for the committee. The question is on Amendment 1259H, printed in House Record 29, on page 1321. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the adoption of the amendment say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The question. All right. The question is on the adoption of the committee report. A division vote has been requested. This will be a division vote. Members will take their seats. Talk to the clerk. For those wondering, things got a little mixed up here, so we did get out of order inadvertently. We will be going back to the bills that were skipped over by mistake. Where's Representative Baker? House will come to order. Chair recognizes Representative Fromuth for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you know, as I know, that decoupling guarantees a rate of return for utilities, and if you also know, as I know, that states that have passed decoupling measures have seen an increase in their electricity rates, and if you know, as I know, that this commission is merely a stepping stone towards passage of decoupling, then would I now press the red button so that another motion may be brought forward?
The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 60. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. The chair recognizes Representative Baber for a parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, if you know, as I know, that the least expensive energy that can be purchased is the energy that is not consumed, and if you know, as I know, that under the current
Representative,
model,
you will suspend. The question is if I know. It's nothing to do with what the chair knows.
My apologies. If I know, Mr. Speaker, that the least expensive energy is the energy that we do not burn, and if I know that currently the only way that electric utility companies are compensated is by the amount of energy you do consume, it is not in their best interest to do energy efficiency programs. So if you believe, as I believe, that if you know, as I know.
Thank you.
Either works, apparently. Thank you. The energy efficiency is in all of our best interests, and that decoupling has worked effectively in many states, and this bill only creates a commission to study what would be best for this state, that you would now press the green button. Thank you.
The question is on the committee report on Senate Bill 60. This is a division vote. If you are in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. Have all members voted who were present when the question was put? The House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 218 votes in the affirmative, 125 in the negative, the committee report is adopted. The Committee on Municipal and County Government, to which was referred Senate Bill 74, an act establishing a committee to study reducing the cost of county government. Having considered the same, report the same with the following resolution. Resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative David A. Bickford for the committee. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. The Committee on Resources, Recreation, and Development, to which was referred Senate Bill 16, an act relative to the requirement for observers of water skiers. Having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative James W. McConnell for the committee. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. No. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. The majority of the Committee on Science, Technology, and Energy, to which was referred Senate Bill 46, an act relative to public safety radio interoperability, having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Michael Vose for the majority of the committee. The minority of the committee, having considered the same and being unable to agree with the majority, report with the following resolution. Resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative Douglas W. Thomas for the minority of the committee. Are you ready for the question? All those in division has been requested. This will be a division vote. Members will take their seats. House will come to order. The question is on the adoption of the committee report on Senate Bill 46. This is a division vote. If you are in favor, you will press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations will be open for 30 seconds. Have all members voted who are present? Oh. Now have all members voted who were present when the question was put? The House will attend to the state of the vote. There having been 214 votes in the affirmative, 124 in the negative, the committee report is adopted. And the bill is referred to the departments, the Committee on Executive Departments and Administration. The Committee on Science, Technology, and Energy, to which was referred Senate Bill 208, an act establishing a committee to study limiting the sulfur content of liquid fuels. Having considered the same, report the same with the recommendation that the bill ought to pass. Representative Douglas W. Thomas for the committee. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. No. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. The House will now attend to the bill removed from the consent calendar. The Committee on Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs, to which was referred Senate Bill 22, an act relative to certain changes in the law governing the therapeutic use of cannabis, having considered the same, report the same with the following amendment and the recommendation that the bill ought to pass with amendment. Representative Frank R. Katowski for the committee. The question is on Amendment 125-1H, printed in House Record 29 on page 1329. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. The chair recognizes the member from Hooksett, Representative Katowski, to speak to the blurb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand here with egg on my face today. Unbelievably, the wrong blurb was attached to Senate Bill 22. To correct that, a new blurb has been written. The clerk has it in their hands, and I'd like to just read it to you, if I may. This was overwhelming in committee. It was 17-1, so it should not be a problem. I urge you to vote yes. Senate Bill 22, relative to certain changes in the law governing the therapeutic use of cannabis. This bill clarifies procedures in the law governing therapeutic use of cannabis. The original bill, passed by a prior legislature, established rules and conditions for issuing cards, identification cards. This bill amends present law so that the Department of Health and Human Services, who asked for the bill, will use a photograph submitted with the initial application for up to 5 years for the purpose of issuing renewal or replacement registry identification cards, after which time the applicant shall submit a new photograph. The reasoning behind that was 5 years ago I had hair, today I don't. We want to be able to recognize people. Thank you. I urge you to vote for this.
Question is on the adoption of the committee report. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. The chair recognizes the member from Brookline, Representative Flanagan, for the third reading motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Resolved that the House now adjourn from the early session, that the business of the late session be in order at the present time, that the reading of bills be by title only and resolutions by caption only, and that all bills ordered to third readings be read a third time by this resolution, and that all titles of bills be the same as adopted, and that they be passed at the present time. And when the House adjourns today, it will be to meet Wednesday, April 29th, 2015 at 10 a.m.
The question is on the third. The House will be in order. House will be in order. We are not in recess. The question is on the third reading motion. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The House will attend to announcements. Representative Ratsky, followed by Representative Jim Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Coalition of Legislators Against Downshifting...
Member will suspend. The House will be in order. The member has a right to be heard. If you don't wish to listen to the announcements, then please quietly exit the room.
We'll meet with the New Hampshire Municipal Association in LOB 201, and I understand that there are some conflicting free lunches out there. I'm not offering any. So I'm going to give till 12:15 for the start of this meeting. LOB 201 for a meeting with the New Hampshire Municipal Association. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Representative Jim Belanger, followed by Representative Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 77 is scheduled for exec session tomorrow. We heard it yesterday. We have some problems with it. Some amendments are coming out. We won't have time to get the amendments in by tomorrow, so that it's being rescheduled until next Thursday.
Chair recognizes Representative Hess, followed by Representative Welsh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. All of you, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Conservatives, Liberals, Libertarians, and Moderates, are invited to a free lunch at St. Paul's Church on the north side of the plaza immediately following the session to hear and ask questions of former Congressman Robert Steele of Connecticut discussing the issue of casinos. Thank you.
Representative Welsh, followed by Representative Flanagan.
Yes, will all members of the Criminal Justice Committee meet me in Division 5 at the end of the session? Thank you.
Representative Flanagan, followed by Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to bring to the attention of this body a limp that our clerk has, Paul Smith. You see, he got married, and he's got a ball and chain on his leg, and I'd like this body just to recognize and congratulate him for his nuptials. And as a dedicated employee, he won't be honeymooning until after session.
Representative Butler, followed by the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All members are welcome down in the cafeteria to learn more about information on breastfeeding for working mothers.
The clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a couple
House will be in order.
Just a couple of quick announcements. Sorry.
House will be in order.
Just a couple.
If you wish to have conversations, please exit the chamber. Otherwise, please be respectful of those who have been recognized by the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a couple of quick announcements. If you have not picked up your roster, please, you will notice that they are now in the back of the chamber in your box with your personalized name tag on it. Secondly, I mentioned earlier IRC is here this week working on software stuff. I would ask that if you have particular issues that you please see staff about them, and they will communicate them with IRC, because IRC has several different meetings throughout the week, so please do not deluge them with complaints, if you will. Thank you very much.
The House will attend a request for unanimous consent. The chair recognizes Representative Hess to speak about President Lincoln.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. If you, like me, get bored on occasion with what happens down here in the well, and you look on the wall behind me, you will see 5 portraits. One of them is unique. 4 of the gentlemen on this wall apparently needed support because either their right or their left hand rested on a table or some other piece of furniture. Only one, Abraham Lincoln, is shown standing alone. And not only standing without any support, but with his hand outstretched in a symbol of sacrifice or forgiveness, if you will. 150 years ago, last night at 10:15, John Wilkes Booth raised his single-shot Derringer and shot Abraham Lincoln in the back of the head. He was attended to by 3 doctors, and 4 uniformed Union soldiers carried him down the stairs from his box seat, across 10th Street and into a very modest row house across the street. I'd like to read the description of where he was taken by Shelby Foote, the noted historian. The room was mean and dingy, barely 15 feet by 9 feet in length and width, with a threadbare rug and oatmeal-colored paper on the walls. The bed itself was too short for the long form, which was placed diagonally on the corn-shuck mattress.
Lincoln's booted feet protruded well beyond the footboard, his head propped on extra pillows so that his bearded chin was on his chest, as it had been when he was first shot. Now began a painful, drawn-out vigil, a death watch, if you will. And 70 years ago, at 7:22 this morning, Lincoln died. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Cooney to speak on the Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II and the liberation of the Nazi concentration camps. Tomorrow is the Jewish Holocaust Remembrance Day. Besides being a day to pay tribute to survivors and remembering the Holocaust, it is a day for all to reject all forms of intolerance and bigotry. This seemed to be the right time to speak about a death camp survivor I came to know through Plymouth Regional High School. Paul and Judy Floyd, teachers at PRHS, were vacationing in New Brunswick, Canada, and made the chance acquaintance of Phil and Dorothy Reitman during a traffic stop. They noticed the number 98706 tattooed on Phil's arm. This initial chance meeting led to a long relationship between Phil and our high school students. With the support and commitment of our principal, Bruce Parsons, Phil has come down to New Hampshire every 4 years to educate all the students who have passed through our doors since 2000 with his firsthand account of the Nazi horrors. Phil's recent talk last fall at the age of 90 may be his last, so I was glad I was able to attend. Our former speaker may remember meeting him back in 2002 when former Representative Deb Narrow and I showed Phil and Dorothy around the State House and introduced him to Speaker Gene Chandler. Phil Reitman was born to a Jewish family in Czerczew, Poland in 1924. His normal life was shattered in 1939 when Germany invaded Poland. The family was forced, with all the others, to march to Pruszczyn to live in a ghetto. In 1941, his family, along with 10,000 others, were loaded into cattle cars and taken to the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. They were crammed together, 100 in a boxcar, with no food, water, or bathrooms for 7 days. No one could even sit down. Some died in those cars. Anyone who resisted, including crying children, were killed. Phil was only 16 at the time. Another prisoner who was helping to organize the prisoners at the camp advised him to say he was 18 and had the skill of a locksmith, so he would be put to work rather than go with the women and children. He did not want to be separated from his family, but he did as he was advised. This decision saved his life. The rest of those brought to the camps that day, the women, the children, the elderly, the infirm, including Phil's parents, grandparents, 5 brothers, 2 sisters, 9 aunts and uncles, and cousins, were sent to the gas chambers. The camp prisoners lived in lice-infested barracks, each using his one bowl to eat from and sometimes to urinate in. Everyone guarded their bowl with their life. If you lost your bowl, you lost your life. The thin broth made with leaves, insects, frogs, and rats was all they had to eat, along with 1 piece of sawdust-filled bread. If you weren't up at 5 a.m., you were shot. If you didn't do what they asked, no matter what it was, you were shot. If you were too weak to do the job, you were shot. One freezing night in February, German soldiers marched 2,000 of them out of their barracks, naked except for their wooden shoes in the snow, with a temperature below 0 to weed out the weak. Those that fell down were shot. There were many times, such as this, that Phil could hardly believe he didn't die. For the next 4 years, Phil was shuttled between Auschwitz, Dachau, Landsberg, and 2 other camps, working at whatever jobs he was told to do, sometimes transporting the dead to crematoriums and burying bodies in mass graves, sometimes working in the mud, building roads. An estimated 20,000 died every day. One summer, Phil was given the job of taking care of the farm horses and working in the fields. He didn't starve them because he was able to eat the horse's grain when no one was looking. His best friend from home, Kola, a Christian Baptist, turned up unexpectedly in Auschwitz-Birkenau. He begged for the story. Kola's whole family was killed when the Germans came to confiscate their cattle. His father was shot. His sisters were raped and shot. His mother burned, and his brother was also shot. He was captured and sent to the camps. Phil was able to get him to work at the farms. One day, the Germans held him back for some reason. Kola was fair-skinned and freckled. The guards made fun of him. They stripped him of his clothes and put him in the water trough for the horses and tried to scrape off his freckles with wire brushes. Phil heard his screams as he bled to death. He felt horribly responsible since he had brought him to the farms. Phil survived all the horrors he witnessed by making his mind a blank, just doing his job without thinking, day after day, year after year. One day, they were marched up into the Tyrolean mountains to act as shields for the German soldiers so they wouldn't get bombed. They did this for about a month with no food or water. Sometimes they could break off an icicle to suck on. Thousands died. Many bodies were tossed to the side of the road. Phil and the others saw the bomber planes and wished they would bomb them to put them out of their misery. One night, they heard nothing. It was strangely quiet. On May 2nd, 1945, when daylight broke, the German soldiers were gone. Phil and his fellow prisoners saw tiny specks crossing the river below in the valley. The specks turned out to be the American soldiers coming toward them. As they got closer, they heard them yelling, "You're free, you're free." One of the soldiers was a Jewish boy from Chicago and translated the message to him in Yiddish. At this time, Phil weighed 75 pounds. They all looked like walking skeletons. Some of the American soldiers cried at the sight of the emaciated survivors. Phil thanks our armed forces over and over for saving his life and that of thousands of others. While living in a Red Cross refugee camp in Munich, Phil was contacted by relatives he never knew, who had never met, who lived in Newfoundland, Canada, and New York. He did not believe the letters were real. Names of the survivors have been published in newspapers around the world. Both Canada and the United States refused to accept Phil as a refugee. When William Joseph Brown, the magistrate judge in Newfoundland, was asked if Phil could come, he said, "By all means, right away." Newfoundland was an independent country at that time and welcomed him. Phil's faith in the goodness and human nature was restored in that small island nation. He tells countless stories of kindness and compassion as he established himself there. As you might remember, the people of Gander, Newfoundland, hosted thousands of stranded airline travelers after 9/11. They are truly a wonderful community of people. When Phil first talked about his experiences, his aunt thought he was mentally ill. The stories were so unbelievable. So for 40 years, Phil never talked about what he saw. Then friends started asking him to speak the truth when they heard that some people were saying the Holocaust never happened. It was difficult for Phil to express out loud the nightmares he had been living with for all those years. Phil came to believe that it's his special mission to talk to young people about this scar on human history, so that they will know what really happened from someone who was there. Often students will ask him if any one of the Germans in charge showed any kindness. We like to believe that a sliver of compassion exists in any situation. But Phil said no, he never saw any instance of kindness, but rather the opposite was true. They took pleasure in sadistic cruelty. Beatings and random murders were a daily occurrence. Students ask if he still believes in God. He replies, "I believe in love and humanity." Tears run down his face when he remembers the horrors he saw. But Phil remains dedicated to his mission. He begins speaking to the students by saying, "When I was your age, I lived in a concentration camp. I never had an education." His audience is always spellbound. His message to all is, think for yourself. Don't be brainwashed quickly. Do not hate anyone. Above all, stand up against evil. Go out and do good things. Respect people, and they will respect you. Love is better than hate. In 2010, Phil, with the help of a writer, Mirel Belleau-McWillie had been able to record his story in a book called Millions of Souls. In it, Phil speaks for the 11 million souls of those who did not survive the Holocaust. Included in the book are many pictures. Among them is a picture of the New Hampshire State House Declaration signed by Speaker Gene Chandler, honoring Mr. Philip Brightman for his exemplary and dedicated service in educating the public about the Holocaust. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Packard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to move that the remarks of both Representative Hess and Representative Cooney be printed in the Permanent Journal.
Question is on printing the remarks of Representative Hess and Cooney in the Permanent Journal. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the ayes have it unanimously. The motion carries. Representative Flanagan moves that the House stand in recess for the purposes of the introduction of bills, receiving Senate messages, enrolled bill amendments, and enrolled bill reports. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The House is in recess until Wednesday, April 29, 2015 at 10 a.m.